I'm very happy to welcome Erich Kirchler to FERNFH, the Distance Learning University of Applied Sciences. Thank you very much for finding your way to our building in Wiener Neustadt in Austria. We would like to talk today with you about your career, how you started your career, how you made economic psychology popular in Austria. And we are going to ask you specifically because you're one of the most important economic psychologists, not only in Austria, but also in Europe and actually the whole international community. What I would like to ask you first is, how did your career start? Was it a childhood dream to become a psychologist and an economic psychologist, or did you have some detours? How did you end up as a professor in economic psychology?
Yeah, Eva, thank you very much for the invitation, for having me here. No, it was not a childhood dream, not at all. I didn't even know what economic psychology is at that time. And I think there are many, even psychologists, who have no concrete idea about the contents of economic psychology or behavioral economics, behavioral finance, and all these fields which in to a certain extent overlap. No, there was a lot of coincidences, a lot of luck. And what I knew as a child was what I would not want, but I didn't know what I wanted. So I started going to school, learning. I did my, my A-level. And at that time, I knew that what I do not want is economics and law. But strangely enough, in my life, there were so many situations where I ended up with law and economics. And finally, when studying psychology, I decided to go into cognitive psychology. Learning issues were attracting me very much. But my planned projects didn't work, and I won't tell you the details about that. But that was the time when I started doing a lot in general psychology, and after graduating at the University of Vienna, I got a position as an assistant at the University of Linz. And my duties were to teach economic psychology, applied psychology in the broader sense, though.
So, why did you change from the University of Vienna, where you studied psychology, to Linz? What made you actually become a scientist and not a practitioner in psychology?
Well, when I did my PhD, I really did, and at that time the PhD was not as complex as it is today, but I was very much well, interested in research, in doing empirical studies, and I discovered my passion actually for research at that time at the University of Vienna when graduating. And you know, after having got my title as a psychologist, I had to look for a job, and there were different jobs. One in Germany, northern parts there. I got some well, ideas about working in northern Italy, where I'm originally from, and I got an invitation to present myself at the University of Linz, and I got this job. And that's why I ended up at the university at that time. So it was a passion, it was an interest in research from my side, but it was also good luck to get this position at that time.
So you were never thinking of becoming a practitioner? You always wanted to become a researcher? Or was there a time when you were thinking of becoming a researcher, I don't know, in marketing, for example, or at a school, or even a clinical psychologist?
Well, I was actually thinking about becoming a practitioner in either clinical and health psychology, but I was also very much interested in diagnostics. So personal selection was an issue, although we didn't have much content in my studies in Vienna about work and organizational psychology at that time. But it was of interest. But you know, once I got the position in Linz and I was more and more acquainted with serious research, my appetite for doing more in research grew, and that's why I not only started there, but I stood there.
So from my point of view, and I think a lot of your students, you actually have started off economic psychology in Austria by becoming I don't know, let's call it a professor or a chair of a research group at the University of Vienna. So how did this work? How did you manage that they have there a position for a professor in economic psychology? Or wasn't it your doing, but someone else doing?
Well, the University of Vienna, the Institute of Psychology at that time, had a position free for applied psychology. And I applied for applied psychology and got this position. And I was taught at the beginning that applied psychology is everything. It's the application of psychology wherever human beings are, which is everywhere. And I very early started narrowing the field to economic psychology in the broader sense. What do I mean by that? I mean that psychology and economics relate to work, to the organization, but also the consumption, marketing, and all that fields, and economic psychology in the narrow sense. So at the beginning, I decided that applied psychology would be those 4 areas.
What is economic psychology in a narrow sense? Because I do know, because I've been your student, but some others might not know.
Well, it is. I can tell you what it is not. It is not work and organization psychology in that sense. It is more related to what I would, to social psychology, rather than general psychology, which is, let's say, the theory toolbox for work and industrial psychology. I think economic psychology in the narrower sense, well, it is easier. Just open the Journal of Economic Psychology and you know what economic psychology is.
Well, I'm not sure I totally agree with that, but can we say it's more like behavioral economics, like economic theory combined with psychology?
No, I think it is more actually. I think when talking about economic psychology in our sense, as we label it, it is, of course, I would say it is the research about how people understand economics in general and specific economic phenomena in particular. So it is children's and adults' lay theories about economics and understanding how they deal in when facing economic topics or problems, if you want. But it is also related to consumption, entrepreneurship as well, but especially to decision making. When you open this box of decision making, there's a lot of behavioral economics, behavioral finance, which is in. But I would also go further and say economic psychology has to do also with, of course, with environmental psychology. All the environmental issues, energy saving and things like that, are per se economic psychological topics. And I would go even farther and say wealth, poverty, even labor markets, if you do study it in experimental terms, or happiness. All these are economic psychological topics. So, and it goes further and probably overlaps to some extent even political psychology.
So you established economic psychology at the University of Vienna. How come that actually we at the FERNFH are also teaching economic psychology? Our curricula are called the master and the bachelor curricula are called business or business administration and economic psychology. What was your doing that we have these 2 curricula?
Well, I think the time was just the right one for introducing behavioral sciences into so-called hardcore economics and business. There were or still are, all the classical approaches in economics, and we observe that people systematically behave in a way which is not really explained by the mainstream economic theories. And I think economists became very much aware of that. Also, people in the political sciences became aware of that, and there was this increasing sensitivity for behavioral insights, maybe culminating in at the end of the 2008 when Nudge was published, and suddenly even politicians created these behavioral insights units to get advices for political strategies.
So, but what does this mean for FERNFH? Why did you take part in establishing the curricula?
Well, I think the funny part of that is that many of my really great colleagues got a position at the FERNFH, and well, they were the way, how should I say, they had a lot of economic psychology when they were in my team. They did a lot of research, but also teaching in that field. And I think that their interest started when doing research and teaching. Like the Italians would say, l'appetito viene mangiando. So I think even people in my team, even you, Eva, perhaps when starting psychology, didn't even know that there is something like economic psychology. But the more you were acquainted with it, the more you saw that there is social psychology, which is the theoretical toolbox, but there's a lot of application and practical advices which you can derive from the knowledge. When observing all that, I think that the interest and the appetite increased.
Mm-hmm. So I remember that you were the one to actually get me and another colleague at the FERNFH, 𝗘𝗿𝗶𝗰𝗵, in touch with the CEO of FERNFH. So, and we together were presented by you as creating both curricula. So as I said before, you made economic psychology an important topic in Austria. What was, I don't know, how did you do it? How did it become important not only at the University of Vienna, but other universities kind of as well, and the FERNFH, but also in general society? How did you manage to make economic psychology a topic?
Well, at the University of Vienna, it was step by step, quite slow at the beginning. I started doing research on unemployment, but also purchase decisions, and you could put all these topics into the category of consumer behavior or labor psychology, if you want. But I did all these studies from a social psychological perspective, very much related to economic rather than business issues. And by doing this research, presenting these studies at conferences, at workshops at the University of Vienna, teaching people, the awareness increased, and the interest increased as well. So we were actually, I think, in the very soon a team which was quite successful in terms of research, and we attracted many students. So at the institute, later the faculty, there was this growing interest in our field. That helped us a lot. And well, perhaps one strategy was just to insist, to go on, and to stay with one topic for a longer time. I never liked the idea to hop from one topic to the next one, but I wanted to know more. Like, for example, when starting research on tax behavior, well, at the beginning I thought running 2-3 studies would suffice to know all about taxpayers. But I discovered there is more. The issue becomes more complex, and even complexer the more you work. And I think so. Digging deeper was one of the was one of the criteria of success, because people saw that there is something which is growing, and knowledge is requested also by practitioners like ministries, etc. So that was something which I think convinced first my colleagues at the faculty, then the colleagues from other universities and psychology departments, but also economists, that we have to, to think about interdisciplinary research, because probably the solutions are there or can be found there rather than in monodisciplines.
And now you have been speaking about the scientific community in Austria, but then all over the world. But you have also been speaking about ministries. How did you get in touch with them, or I don't know, the media, for example?
Well, you know, when I studied at the University of Linz, I had a great professor who taught me a lot in economic psychology. He made me actually familiar with economic psychology, Hermann Brandstätter. And he was the one saying from the very beginning that we, first of all, have to publish. That was not given for granted at that time. We have to first publish in peer-reviewed outlets, and we have to communicate our results to the greater public via media, and we have to find or to connect with the institutions which are interested to our findings and who might need or use our findings for their strategy building. So there was this socialization, if you want, from the very beginning. And, you know, the topics in economic psychology are really very applied and very practical, so that it was not only going out and looking for somebody who might be interested in our research, but there were also institutions and media coming in and asking for.
So you didn't have to actually ask them to get in touch with you. It's actually they came to you and helped you, I don't know, get your knowledge across not only the scientific community, but also the general public?
Well, I would say you have to be active at your side, but you should also be open for the other ones who are active to contact you. Yeah, I think activity was from both sides.
So we have been speaking about the past. When you think about economic psychology, what do you think are the main topic economic psychologists should focus on in the future? What do you think is the future research fields in economic psychology?
Well, talking about the future is always difficult, but I would say that, of course, climate change, energy consumption will remain a topic in our field. Another important field, I think, is also studying solidarity, the ingredients or the ingredients of solidarity. We have to cooperate in larger communities, even when it comes to energy saving, etc. Wherever we encounter a social dilemma, cooperation is important. And what do we need to know? What do we need to do to establish and to strengthen solidarity? I think that is one of the major contributions for the future which economic psychologists could make. And when talking about tax behavior, I think we are studying solidarity, the ingredients of solidarity, just by looking into tax paying, but you can generalize our findings to other fields which are similar in that respect. What will remain as an important topic is for sure decision-making in general in economic psychology, but probably also equality, equity, well-being, welfare.
So it's actually all topics becoming bigger or more interesting. Like I think for about welfare, there is already some research, but not like a lot of research. But it's also about climate change, as you said, so about sustainable behavior, right?
Yes.
So if you want to sum up and you think back of your whole career, what were the most important positions or life events, like academic life events, that helped you to make economic psychology that famous or interesting to people, but also that helped you as a person to grow and be successful?
Well, if I had only one sentence to answer this question, I would say it was really the teamwork. I was really lucky to have colleagues in my team who were interested, who developed passion for the field, who were willing to to accept hot disputes about the topic. And that is probably what gave me most in my whole career.
Okay, so personally or actually to make the field popular?
I think both. Personally, I took a lot of energy out from teamwork. I must really say, if I had been alone, and now that I'm retired, I'm very much alone, research is not as interesting anymore. So the team is personally, from a personal perspective, definitely gave me a lot of energy, a lot of drive in my behavior. But I think also working in teams, I would even say in interdisciplinary teams, is I think it is necessary if you want to be successful in the field. It is hard. It's not easy. You have to learn other languages. You have to be be willing to learn about other methodologies. But at the very end, I think that's what's the major criteria for successful scientific career.
So thank you very much for taking your time and speaking to us about your career, how economic psychology became so successful in Austria. And we hope to see you sometime again speaking about another topic.
Thank you.